Video for BetterValues.com, a compensation overview. Now, this is not a sales training video, and visitors should come away with a confident understanding of what you can expect to earn if you were chosen to become a Better Cities sales associate. Several different scenarios will be explained in this training video. Notice to all associates, this is a quick legal disclaimer. The following numbers are based on genuine projections and should result in an accurate representation of authentic earnings by a sales associate who does perform consistently all year long. This compensation plan rewards the diligent and those who do not oversell and are good at retaining new and existing clients. In order to make these numbers stay accurate, you will need to make sure you are selling 12 months to 36-month contracts and are able to replace occasional attrition as it arises. Individual results may vary based on each person's ability to perform as expected. Sales quotas. All sales associates are expected to sell a minimum average of 100 blocks per month of advertising in order to earn residuals until the full grid is sold in a given market. For those that do not understand those blocks, let me explain. Here is an example of BetterChico.com. It's one of the many websites that is owned by the BetterValues.com network. Now, if you'll see, individual blocks sitting here represent those 100 blocks we were talking about. Feather Falls Casino here has a small ad, and it's 5 by 3 blocks for a total of 15 blocks. So when we're discussing the need to average 100 blocks per month with Feather Rivers Casino, you'd only need about a half a dozen of those a month to generate 100 blocks. This requirement does not apply again until the 7th month. Sales associates are expected to sell actually an average of 60 blocks per week. Now, an average sale will usually consist of an 8 to 20 block sale, which equates to 3 to 8 sales per week, or approximately 0.6 to about 1.7 sales per day average. Compensation for the first 6 months, including residuals for the same exact 6 months, is 30% for all new independent sales associates. Bonuses will also be available for the first 4 months as noted below. After their initial 6 full calendar months, all compensations, including residuals, will be adjusted based on individual performance and ability to hit sales expectations. Now, back to our website here on Better Chico, you'll notice all of these businesses. If you had sold all of these businesses, each month they would be paying a fee for service to be on the site. Relatively nominal. It averages out to a little over $8 a block. And so if they have a 10 block space on here, which is kind of like this Praya website, the 10 block space is about 80 bucks or so a month. Your commission residual earnings is 30% of that. When you add up several accounts, it becomes quite substantial, and we'll show you those dollars here in just a moment. Now, there are additional bonuses, as we mentioned, in those first 4 months. And after 6 months, you will be reevaluated to see how you're doing on your quotas and those things, and your compensation could be adjusted at that time. Once your first full month start, you are expected to market a minimum of 1,000 blocks in the next 6 months or 26 weeks. Now, that's really only an average of 38.5 blocks per week, and we do truly expect that you should be able to do considerably better than that and do about 60 blocks per week is more of a normal expectation. These that we're showing you now are minimum requirements, and minimum requirements to keep your 30% compensation rate long term. Now, 38.5 blocks per week is only about a 64% of your expected volume. Now, with an average minimum of 8 blocks per sale, that's less than one new business sold daily. Now, if you accomplish this minimum requirement, you will be paid a 30% residual income on all sales for the first 2 years. If you have a minimum of 2,500 blocks filled and are filled with competent businesses that are well-paying clients at the end of the 2 years, you will keep that level of compensation so long as you maintain a 90% active ratio. If you accomplish these minimum standards, you will also have a long-term continuous income of about $75,000 a year. Now, if you only do the 90% instead of the full 100%, and you only have about 90% of your share of the grid consistently filled with active clients each month, then your income would average about $67,500 at that time. Now, the following spreadsheets we're about to discuss demonstrate several examples of success, and it actually shows one example of failure. Now, do keep in mind, none of these things that we're going to discuss and show you are difficult to do, so long as you follow the simple and proven strategies. Now, this workbook contains 7 sheets. Each sales associate that is serious about a position with the company, and the company has screened you and is comfortable with you and is looking at possibly bringing you on board, will actually get a copy of this spreadsheet so you can manipulate and play with the different scenarios yourself to really see how it might work based on all kinds of different ideas that you may have. But we're going to start with a simple sample. Now, the fine print or the text above are all the things we just discussed inside that PowerPoint presentation. What I want to do is I want to walk you down this list of rows starting with 19, and we'll go down to 36. We're just going to talk about some of the headers here that are there, and we'll walk through some of the numbers. Number 19 is minimum blocks sold, and that's the cumulative, which your minimum quota is an average of 100 a month, and that would bring you across over a 12. In this case, we showed you what the 13th month might look like. Your expected volumes is a little bit higher than that, and you should have all 2,500 blocks sold if you're doing the 60 blocks per week average by the month 13th. And so, in theory, you can completely fill out an entire market on your half of the grid. You could completely fill that out in 13 months and either be ready to look at being promoted into another market and still retaining residual income off the front market, or you could possibly be looking at being promoted into some level of management and overview over multiple cities, multiple markets, and being able to make an override off of that volume. Now, in the sample, where we came through and put in some very conservative numbers here. Month 1, only 125 blocks sold. Well, you're just getting trained, you're getting off the ground, so maybe you don't do as well that first month. But we only count your first full month. So if you had a partial month beforehand, you came in the middle of the month, that actually would give you 6 weeks. And in those first 6 weeks, only selling 125 is an extremely low number. You should have your feet firmly on the ground by that point and be able to average your 60 to 65 average blocks per week. And based on 4 weeks or 4 1/3 weeks, you should be able to easily average your 60. So month 2, 240, which is a little bit less than 60 a week when you base 4 1/3 weeks. Month 3, 260. And then maybe month 4 a little bit better, month 5 a little bit less, and then you're getting a little bit relaxed and you're not pushing quite so hard. So maybe you're only averaging 50 for 4 weeks and taking an extra 3-day holiday over the course of a given month. And even on that last 12th month, you only did 175. If you do those, you'll still end up with your 2,500 by the end of the 13th month. and actually have your half of the grid in a particular market completely filled, and be ready to move on to another opportunity. Here is an example of any possible cancellations. In this sample, we didn't account for any cancellations. Most contracts are 12 months to 36 months, so you wouldn't expect any cancellations in those first 12 months. So here's your cumulative numbers that show you how we get up to that $2,500 number and value. Now we talk about bonuses. As long as you manage a minimum of 125 in your first month, which with that partial month from the month before is a very nominal amount you will receive and qualify for your first bonus, and your first bonus is an extra $100. Now, since you're getting paid long-term residual income, you have just banked $512.50 in earnings for that first month, but you have also banked $512.50 in ongoing residual earnings from just 1 month's work. How many people do you know have a Social Security income that's maybe only as low as that $512.50, and that's after they worked 40 years of their life to get that retirement income? And here you have an ongoing residual income of $512.50 after 1 month of low volume sales. Your second month, getting your volume up closer to full speed, you now add another 240 to your 125 for a total of 365. You did qualify for your bonus. You get an extra $500 bonus, and your current month income now is $1,100, and you banked extra residual income from the month before. And month 3, the 260 brings you to 625. You did qualify. You got a $1,000 bonus on month 3 for $1,650, and you also have you're also bankrolling in about $1,000 now in monthly residuals for a total that month of $2,563.50. And the beautiful part is, by the end of 90 days, not only did you just make $2,500 that month, you are now bankrolling about $2,500 a month on ongoing income. Month 4, you push it a little bit more. In month 4, we intentionally made it a little bit tougher volume. You have to come outside the box and do a little bit better, either because you did a little bit better out of the gate, and were consistent all the way across, or you finally had to hit crunch time and catch up a little bit here in month 4 and do a little bit extra. But if you do that, we're going to give you a $2,000 bonus plus what you did on your regular compensation there, and you're going to walk out of it with about $4,300 that month, and you've got yourself an ongoing residual. By the time these numbers work their way all the way down the line, you're at a $75,000 a month income, or your $6,250 a month. Excuse me, $75,000 a year income, which is about $6,250 a month on income. Now, I know that you're probably sitting here thinking, yeah, but what if I did a little bit better than that? What if I did a little bit worse than that? What if I was a little bit more up and down on some of those things? And we're going to show you what some of those scenarios might look like. Here on test number 1, you'll notice that this is a person hitting closer to the numbers out of the gate, which is closer to what we genuinely expect that people will accomplish. And this person came out of the gate 175 their first month plus their partial, and then they were very close to hitting consistent numbers all the way across the board on their 60 a week. Didn't knock it out of the park and do something extremely huge, but they did do a nice job on bringing all these compensations together. At the end of 12 months, they had their 2,500. They didn't have high months, they didn't have low months, just nice consistency all the way across. And again, they're back to that $75,000 a year income. And that's also, remember, that's also residual income for ongoing years as well. We'll get back to that idea real quickly. Now, here's a person that didn't do so well out of the gate. You know, they only got 50 that first month. They really weren't paying attention. They really weren't trying. They only got 100 the next month. They're not hitting any bonuses. They're not doing real well. But finally, they kick it into gear on that 4th month and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and they average about 45 a week instead of 60. Month 5, they finally get it. They're up a little bit higher. Their numbers are really consistent. Now they're averaging their 60, 65. So they came out of the gate pretty slow the first 5 or 6 months, but you know what? Even though they did that, they still got their 2,500 blocks done in the first 12 months by the 13th month, and they're still holding that $75,000 a year income on following the variable dump months. This example here, this is an example of someone that isn't quite going to make it all the way. Didn't make their bonuses, had really low sales starts, 50 here, 75 this month, 75 blocks here, 75 blocks there. This is not what I would call a producer by any means. But this person, by the time they got done with the first year, they only had about 1,650 blocks sold out, where everybody else was getting 2,500. But you know what? Their projected income for the next year, based on these numbers and continued growth, is $51,112.50 their second month, and they will hit their quota for the 2-year goal of having to have the 2,500 in by the end of 2 years, not 1 year. And they're still very sound, very safe. A little sluggish in the start, little sluggish in the middle. Finally started to get it towards the end of that year. So a nice overall solution. Now this is the guy that doesn't make it. This is the guy that fails out. Came on board, got 100 coming out of the gate, big talker, pushed it out, didn't do super well, but you know what, for first month, okay. But then for whatever reason, got a little disenchanted the next 3 months, only did 75 each, didn't get their bonuses, getting a little bit more disenchanted. Their 5th month, they decided to kick it a little bit and get it back up to that 100. You know, they finally just say, you know what, I don't know if this is for me or not, and they only do 50 for a couple of months, and then they finally drop and fall off. And at the end of the year, they have pretty much collapsed and would pretty much fail at the end of the year. And so that's that possibility. When you're given this spreadsheet, you'll have the ability to come in here and you'll have the ability to change some of the numbers in this plan, and you'll be able to modify some of the actual numbers of blocks sold on these purple areas, and you'll be able to also add in for cancellation. And I do believe I did back on some of these others. I do believe I may have compensated in for a few cancellations. I did here on this second test, if you notice. I forgot to mention it, did talk a little bit about some cancellations there. You'll have the opportunity to play with cancellations. You'll have the opportunity to play with various different sales numbers, and it will automatically fill in all the rest. You'll be blocked from being able to mess with the other fields so you don't accidentally damage some of the formulas that are hiding in there to make those numbers come up. So with that, back to the tail end of our presentation, there are some long-term opportunities that you do need to understand. Once a sales associate has proven him or herself and has their primary market stable at 90% saturation, they can qualify for an additional market. Individuals who have demonstrated leadership skills may qualify for district management earnings of up to 5% override on up to 5 different markets, thus earning $75,000 in residuals from your own primary market and a potential of $125,000 as a district sales manager on your override on these 5 other markets. And that's assuming that you didn't make one sale and build any of the residuals on those other accounts, and that all of your salespeople held and you didn't have to take over any of those accounts. Because if you do end up with salespeople that do end up like that guy in that last scenario on the spreadsheet that didn't succeed, that sales manager would take over those accounts, take over those residual incomes, and have that added to their income. But quite honestly, if all you made was the 5% on those extra markets and had your one market that you went ahead and sold in those first 2 years, in about 5 years you could anticipate making about $200,000 a year and only having to maintain and oversee your sales force and maintain and keep your own primary market up to speed and handle any possible attrition or late turnovers. For $200,000 a year, that is about one of the finest opportunities I have ever seen. And with that, we want to thank you and come to a close on the compensation plan and structure for Better Cities and BetterValues.com. Thank you. This is Mike Doherty, your host for this episode. Have a great and wonderful evening.